Last week, Nigeria's apex court, the Supreme Court, granted financial autonomy to the 774 local governments in the country. Well, they now enjoy some sort of freedom. At least they're off the shackles of state governors, excuse me, who some persons have referred to as emperors. But was the Supreme Court right with their decisions? Well, we'll talk about that on the show this evening as I bid you welcome to another edition of The Newsroom. The Newsroom is a program brought to you by Nigeria Info's Newsroom, where we take a critical look at some of the big stories that have made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno, your regular host, and today it is a big package because we're also going to touch on something that concerns you, residents of Lagos, on, of course, our segment where we deal with Lagos issues brought to you by the Lagos State government. But before we get into all of that, let's take a critical look at some of the big stories that made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days. I don't think they come any bigger than the tragedy we saw on Friday, where, as at the last count, 22 children are dead and over 130 are injured after a school building collapsed in Plateau State, north central Nigeria. Building collapse again. It's become a recurring decimal. The NEMA DG visited the site on Sunday and talked about how that's a tragedy that could have been avoided if experts, were part of that building. The state government also says an investigation is underway, and they cited what they call weak structure and unsafe location of the school as possibly a reason. Now, with the high cost of building materials every day as a result of course, the inflation, by the way, Yvonne just read that in the news, is skyrocketed again. It does look like developers are looking for cheap materials or cheap ways to build houses. The repercussion, to a large extent, is what we're seeing. Very, very sad. I couldn't for the life of me watch any of the videos or see any of the pictures. I think I've said this repeatedly here on the show, that the way my mind works, if I see such things, it gets stuck in my memory and very hard to, so I find ways to avoid them. But I cannot for the life of me imagine my 6-year-old son or my almost 5-year-old daughter being part of that tragedy. It will almost break me, and I do feel for the families, at this point in time. I pray God gives them the fortitude to bear this particular loss. From there, let's also talk about another story that made the rounds last week. And this was something I really wanted to talk about last week. But it's the flip-flop in government decisions, in government policies. Over the last 1 year, it has become alarming. Now, one of the big stories, my memory serves me right, or the first news on the 6 p.m. bulletin today is the fact that UAE has finally, we can now start getting visas. Believe it or not, when my colleague in Abuja dropped that story in our CWIA newsroom group, we have a group, of course, where all of our colleagues, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and, elsewhere, where we collate our news items. The first thing that popped up in my mind is, I hope we're not going to read this in the news by 6 o'clock. And then by 6:30, another government official will pop up and say, no, it's fake news. It didn't come from us. Because that's almost what has been going on, from the President Bola Tinubu administration. Last week, Bayo Ononuga tweeted about, the policy of removing, duties and taxes from some food items. And a few hours later, after almost all Nigerian media had, he is an essay to the president. Anything he says is news. After we had put out that story, well, he deleted the tweet. And we heard stories about, oh, no, it's still a work in Come on. Really? Just this evening, I'll give you another example. Just this evening, 2 days ago, the president appointed a new coordinator for hydrocarbon pollution remediation project, HYPREP for short. The old coordinator is from Rivers State. The new one that was appointed is from Ondo State. 2 days ago, Ogoni people protested because the old coordinator was apparently from Okoni. They protested. I said, lie, cannot happen. This evening, just about an hour ago, the president's special advisor, Ajuri Ngelale, put out a statement saying that the president has reinstated the old person that was kicked out 2 days ago. Now, here's the most interesting part of that statement. He says the president reached the decision following a performance review of the HYPREP project coordinator and concluded that the project coordinator is fit to discharge his functions in accordance with the regulations, blah, 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 blah. The part that concerns me is where he says project review. The question would be, was there no project review before a new coordinator was appointed 2 days ago? Or should I assume that, it was the protest from the Ogoni people who said over their dead bodies, will they have someone, not from their area or not from the south? This is me, trying to, I'm not saying exactly what they said. I'm just, assuming. Was it the protest that made the president change his mind? Even though officially they tell us, it was because they reviewed. It's tiring. That's the whole point of what I'm saying. It's tiring. The communication strategy of the president is in shambles. It is terrible. As if that one is not enough. One of the big stories again that got a lot of Nigerians talking last week was, of course, the appointment of ex-Lagos lawmaker Mojisola Kehinde Ali Macaulay. In case you do not know her, she has been appointed as the Executive Director Operations of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund. Well, let me take your minds back to 4 years ago during COVID. She was alleged to have withheld things that were supposed to have been distributed to Nigerians as COVID palliatives. She turned it allegedly into birthday souvenirs for her own personal birthdays. You remember that? You remember that lawmaker? Yeah. That's the same person who allegedly turned COVID palliatives that were not from her and turned it into souvenirs for her personal birthday. Nothing came out of it. And that's exactly the same person that has now been appointed Executive Director of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund. Let me tell you what that agency is all about. It is a proactive and employee-dedicated government institution, wait for it, committed to the welfare of employees in the event of work-related accidents and injuries. That's what this agency is for. So someone who has an allegation on her head that she turned federal government property, in quote, to her personal birthday souvenirs is the one who's now been appointed to manage such a trust fund. Questions. Of course, another big story from the weekend that is still a big story today is the assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump. Now, I've seen loads and loads of conspiracy theories, Some would say, well, Trump is the one that even caused it because he fed into a lot of these kind of conspiracy theories in his 4 years as president from 2016 to 2020. But the point is, I've heard quite a lot of Nigerians, talk about, it was staged, it was this, it was that. Well, right here on Nigeria Info, we try to deal on facts. And the fact of the matter remains that the FBI is still ongoing with its investigation. Nobody knows for certain if it was staged. What we do know for certain is that there was a gunshot. In fact, I'm actually watching the video in front of me. Somebody died. Not the shooter. The shooter was killed. Somebody else died. I hear the person was trying to protect his family. He died. So while we throw around all of these conspiracy theories, let's to a large extent wait for the facts. And then this takes us, of course, to our very first topic of the day, which has to do with the decision of the Supreme Court. That's what we're going to be talking about first half of the show today, even as, we'll try to reach through to our guest on the show, who is a constitutional lawyer, and he's also a lecturer. My producer for today, Ufuoma Egbamuno, is trying as much as possible to get through to our guest. But last week, quite a number of us believe that the Supreme Court's judgment is a victory for the third tier of government. But that judgment has also raised a number of questions. Quite a number of questions. Because the Constitution says something different. Even though we agree that to a large extent the governors have not done well. Let's just put it that way. The governors have not done well. But it does look like I've got my okay, no, I haven't. Unfortunately, it does look like we've not been able to get to him. But like I said, the guest I'm expecting on the show is a constitutional lawyer, and he's a lecturer at the Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law at the University of Port Harcourt. Felix Bagara. Hopefully, he will be joining us in a matter of seconds, if not minutes, if not seconds. Hopefully, because we honestly need to ask some very vital questions that some persons have raised. One of such persons is former governor of Delta State, Chief James Onanefe Ibori. He did put up a thread, I think, on Friday. Now, I read through the thread and I read through some of the comments, and quite a number of the comments, were attacking him and, talking about his, well, they're no longer corruption allegations. He was found guilty by a court. He served his time in prison. But I looked away from all of those comments, and I'm looking critically at some of the points he raised. It's not in doubt that truly, a lot of the governors over the last decade or two have turned local governments into their personal properties, withheld monies, suspended democratically elected chairmen at will. In fact, just recently, a couple of months ago, we saw local government chairman from Ogun State literally bowing, like literally bowing, and to the Ogun State governor. You would ask yourself, in a normal democracy, should that be the case? Honestly, it shouldn't, because ideally they should have their own independence. They are an arm of government on their own. But you have to be loyal to the governor for you to be able to get something as simple as the allocation that is due to you. And it did not start today. Famously, former president Olusegun Obasanjo withheld, the allocation to Lagos State local governments because the governor at the time, who incidentally is Nigeria's president right now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had created LCDAs, from the 20 local governments in the state, which, going by the constitution, he is well within his rights to do. But let me just stay a little bit on that, because it does look like I have finally gotten through to my guest on the show. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the newsroom.
Good evening to you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Lagos, we have a constitutional lawyer and lecturer of the Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law at the University of Port Harcourt, Felix Bagara. First, many persons have argued that the Supreme Court does not have the powers to invalidate any part of the Constitution, because it does feel like, looking through the Constitution, it does feel like that's what the judgment from last week on local governments did. I would like to get your thoughts about this.
Okay, thank you. Um, yes, the decision of the Supreme Court last Thursday has actually generated a lot of issues. I am one of those. I belong to the school of thought which believes that that doesn't sit well with the Constitution. Okay, as other people may have pointed out, if you look at Section 162 sub 6 of the Constitution, that's the section that is affected. If what we read in the news media, I've not seen a copy of the judgment, and as a lawyer, I'm not supposed to comment extensively on what I've not seen, because sometimes newspaper reportage or news media houses report of proceedings of court sometimes may not be too accurate, or what people report on the social media.
True.
But then if we are to restrain ourselves with what has been reported so far, if that's true, that the Supreme Court directed or ordered that section 6, that's section 162, subsection 6, which provides for a mandatory establishment of state joint local government account to be deleted from the Constitution, so as to pave way for the federal government to make direct distribution of allocations of local government areas in states that do not have democratically, to make provision for direct allocation of local government funds in the federation account to the local governments themselves. Then it will amount to an act that is, I don't know if I would call it an overreaching act, because the Supreme Court has even held in several other cases. In several other cases, the Supreme Court has interpreted the provision of laws that all the actions of government that appear to sidestep this provision, the Supreme Court has found that it. In Attorney General, there's a decision like that. Attorney General of Abia State and Attorney General of the Federation, this case was contested by Abia and two other states, Delta and Lagos states. What transpired in this case was that a particular law, Monitoring of Revenue Allocation to Local Governments Act, was passed in 2005. The essence of that law was that it was observed that governors were sitting over allocations to local governments using this state joint local government account. So monies meant for local governments in states were paid into this account, and then for its distribution by the state government to the local governments in their own states. It was observed that governors were enriching themselves from this particular account. They were not paying correctly. So the Assembly stepped in as a way of policing what the governors do to ensure that these monies get the local governments in each state directly without governors touching this money. And they passed this law. What about this law? The purpose of this law was that federal government, some officers of the federal government.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
It seems like the network is a bit problematic. Could you just maybe shift a little bit or turn your direction to somewhere else? Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think it's better now.
Okay, so the Supreme Court in the same case of Attorney General of Abia State and two others, that's the two others were Delta and Lagos States. In that case, said it was wrong for the National Assembly to make a law that purported to remove from the state governments the power to distribute funds to their local governments, which is what this particular decision. So this particular decision the Supreme Court has reached not only violates Section 162 sub 6 of the Constitution, also goes against another decision that the same Supreme Court has given in Attorney General of Lagos State and Abia State and two other states, versus Attorney General of the Federation, where the Supreme Court held that it was wrong for the federal government through the National Assembly and through the Accountant General of the Federation and other people who wanted to control and monitor how states actually distribute the funds from the Federation account meant for their local government. So I support the contention, the argument, the assertion that this particular decision violated a provision of the Constitution.
Okay, just for the sake of those listening to Nigeria Info right now, let me read that part of the Constitution. It's section 162, subsection 6. It says, each state shall maintain a special account to be called State Joint Local Government Account, into which shall be paid all allocations to the local government councils of the state from the Federation account and from the government of the state.
Yes.
It's very clear that that's what the Constitution says. So
that's correct.
Now, which brings me to my next question. This legal action, was brought before the Supreme Court by the Attorney General of the Federation, and one can assume that the Attorney General will not bring this kind of legal action, or suits to the court without the president authorizing it. Now, some have suggested, and I think that the suggestion might be a little too far-reaching. It might not be totally correct, but some have suggested that this is an action that the president wanted from day one. In fact, he even welcomed the decision of the Supreme Court. So, would it be safe for anybody to assume that, well, the legal luminaries at the Supreme Court have possibly, just done, it was more like a political decision, so to speak, to solve the problems that Nigeria has had as a result of these governors' decisions?
Well, thank you very much for that question. It does appear to me to be so, because from 1999 till date, there have been attempts to grant full financial autonomy to local government councils.
True.
Looking at what local government councils have been going through in the hands of the state governments. So there's no denying the fact that local governments have not been treated fairly by the state governments. It's not something we can run away from. The
True.
facts are there. The facts are there in the public domain. Yes, that's true. So based on that, various administrations, beginning from Olusegun Obasanjo's administration, even Buhari, President Muhammadu Buhari, made a lot of efforts. National Assembly has passed a lot of constitutional amendments at the National Assembly level to amend this particular provision of Section 162 sub 6 to remove it, so that state governments, so that local government will have direct allocation from the Federation account without passing through, even to ensure that state independent electoral commissions no longer conduct local government elections. But at every stage, these amendments have not been passed, have not seen the light of the day, because, of course, you know that for any provision of the Constitution to be amended, two-thirds majority of the states must support the amendment. So it has always been failing. These reforms to reform the local government and then give it kind of autonomy has always been failing. So it has always been the yearning, including the present president. I think he campaigned. During his campaign, he said he was going to grant. But it's been seen that it cannot work if you have to pass through constitutional amendments. So when the National Assembly said, when I heard the Senate president, I think, made a comment that now that this Supreme Court has made the decision, they are going to go back to the House and then maybe tinker with the law in line with, I am still asking myself, how possible is that going to be? Because the governors, I can guarantee you that the governors will direct their assemblies to vote against it. At all times, they've not been having 24. At most, they've been having 18, 14, 15, and so it always collapses. So I actually think that it is a kind of political arrangement to say, okay, what we've not been able to achieve through constitutional amendment, which ought to have been the correct procedure, let's get the court to pronounce on it. And then maybe when everybody had submitted to it, it could make amendments maybe easier. Of course, you agree with me that there's a school of jurisprudence in law that is called the realist school. The realist school believes that it is what the court actually says and not what the law says. It's not what is in the statute, such as we have in the Constitution. It is not what the statute says It is what the court pronounces finally.
And the Supreme Court is the highest court.
Yes, that becomes the law. And of course, the Supreme Court is a policy court. It's not just a court of law. It's a policy court.
Okay.
So sometimes it is swayed by political considerations. Sometimes it is swayed by economic considerations. Sometimes it is swayed by some other considerations in coming to an interpretation that it will give to a provision. So sometimes the provision may not even, the interpretation that the Supreme Court as the highest court of the land, not only as the final appellate court, but as a policy court that can shape the policy direction of a nation, of a country like Nigeria, sometimes may arrive at its decisions not entirely based on the black letters of the law as contained in the statute. Some other considerations other than what the law says may. So I see this decision as one that deviates from the literal provision of the law. Maybe there are some other considerations. It could be political, to get a political solution to what has been eluding the Federal Republic of Nigeria
over the last 2 decades.
Yes, over the last 2 decades or more.
Okay, brilliant. But my final question to you will now be: is it impossible to now assume that now that we've taken away the supposed emperor-like look of the 36 state governors, are we not creating a new emperor, so to speak? In the city, we can get to a situation where the president decides that, you know what, I'm not paying allocation to local government A or local government B or local government C, since it's supposed to come from that way. Are we not getting to a situation where the president becomes, quote unquote, an emperor?
Well, that might not be far from what may happen. This is Nigeria, where institutions of government and government functionaries and public office holders have not been obeying the law as such. Now, let me tell you something. Some people actually believe that this decision of the Supreme Court given last Thursday actually did anything too significant or too novel. The issue of declaration of local government councils, caretaker committees, as illegal has been there so many years, several years.
True.
Back. Yes. So you have Governor of Ekiti State and Olubomo is a case where that has been decided. Federal Republic of Nigeria and Solomon, so many cases. I even have a case of decided last year, 2023. There's one of 2020. It has been there. It's governors refusing not to implement them because maybe for one, they have immunity, so you cannot do anything against them. And secondly, the Supreme Court has said in the Attorney General of Lagos State and Federation that the federal government does not have the power. The president does not have the power to order the unilateral withdrawal. Withholding of allocations. So no government has been able to do that all along. So since we are in the country where people don't usually obey the law, and sometimes
or they obey the ones that favors them.
Yeah, that might happen. Number one, the federal government may have to direct a control over local government authorities to the point of being able to control them and to be able to withhold their funds if they are not playing according to the rules. According to the dictates of the federal government. There's also the fear that even the local government councils may not utilize for nothing significant may happen in terms of so many persons have expressed so much optimism that we are now back to the era where local governments will perform. They will do this, they will do that, they will build roads, they will do that. I'm still afraid. The local governments we have. Because even the ones they've been given, some of them receive as much as 400 million naira, some receive close to 1 billion naira, and then we still don't see, even as common as boreholes. So I don't know if this judgment has anything to offer in terms of positive impact development at the local government level. Then, can we really say that the governors will not control this as long as the governors are still the ones who will ensure that those who will enjoy this new financial autonomy decreed by the Supreme Court, as long as the governors are the ones that will anoint them when we look at the way local government elections are conducted in Nigeria, where all those anointed by the governor, members of the opposition, the ruling party, will sweep all the positions.
Yep. Adamawa over the weekend.
Yes. Can we really say that this chairman will not have a way of returning the money back and say, Governor, oh, this is my share, or what? Will there not be a way of still getting this money back? What the Supreme Court thinks it wants to undo through this pronouncement at the Supreme Court, will there not be a backdoor approach to getting this money back and still starve the local government and keep them? Of course, the governor will exercise power over their impeachment, because the governor can always exercise power over their impeachment under the various local government laws. The chairman of a local government can be impeached by his councillors.
True.
And the governors can easily instigate impeachment against a recalcitrant chairman who has refused to pay his dues and get him removed out of office. And so, for that fear, I fear that chairmen, even with this autonomy, will continue to show their loyalty, financial loyalty, to their respective governors.
Okay, we'd have to leave it at that. There's a whole lot to talk about in this particular issue, but time is not so on our side. But we want to thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the newsroom this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a privilege. It's an honor.
All right. That was, of course, Felix Bagara, who is a constitutional lawyer, and he's also a lecturer at the Department of Public Law at the Faculty of Law of the University of Port Harcourt. Quite a lot he's actually said. So I'll just leave it at that. There are lots of things I wanted to say, but, I did talk about the fact that we deal on facts here. We don't deal on conspiracy theories. So I will shut up and just say it in the newsroom and not right here on air. But quickly, guys, let's move on to the second half of the show, brought to you, of course, by the Lagos State government. And quickly, on today's show, we will be talking about Lastma's 24-hour customer service center that was, of course, launched, by Lastma. We did have plans to have the Lastma hierarchy, on the show today. Unfortunately, that didn't work out particularly well, but hopefully we will get them on the show as soon as possible. But just in case you do not know, the operations of the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority received a boost as, of course, the state government launched a 24-hour customer service center equipped with dedicated toll-free hotlines. You heard right. Toll-free. They did not say you should not start calling and spending 20 minutes and talking about how your girlfriend ditched you and did not come to your birthday party. No, that's not why they made it toll-free. It's for responsible callers who have either feedback or complaints to make. Now, it is a walk-in complaint center, a website, a whistleblower app, and a new Department of Statistics, Research and Data. Special Advisor to the Governor on Transportation, Honorable Shola Giwa, who officially commissioned the Customer Service Center, explains how the initiative works. He noted that the center will also enable drivers to get real-time updates on road conditions, traffic advisories, enabling them to plan their routes more effectively, and even you to plan your day. I see some of my colleagues, you stay back 2-3 hours in the office because they're waiting for traffic. Sometimes there's probably no traffic there. One of them is sitting by my side here, Yvonne or Haifo. Maybe this also would help plan her way particularly well in getting home. But let's get to hear from the Special Advisor to the Governor on Transportation, Honorable Shola Giwa.
We launched our calling center. So everyone can pick up their phone, whether they have credit or not, they can call Lastma for complaints, suggestions. When they see something, they say something. It's as simple as that. Secondly, you can also walk in. We have a walk-in center that I've shown you also, where you can come in for your complaints also, and there are people there that will attend to you. We have an interactive website also. And then the fourth one, of course, is the say something app, the whistleblowers app. That if you see something that is wrong, you get on your phone, just like you can. Everybody now go on Facebook, on TikTok, so it's available almost for everybody. So you just need to download it on Google App Store, and then you can just sign on. Simple as that. So it is very simple app that you can use. We want to encourage the citizens to buy into this app because it's patriotic. That you see something that is happening on our road, we cannot be everywhere. And the way it is structured is that for every incident that you capture and upload, a Lastma personnel at that particular place has been geolocated to be able to get that alert and deal with it immediately. So it's not as if we just upload it, it will come to a central database just like that. Of course, we have in our central database, you get it now. But in any area that you upload whatever is an accident, is an infraction, immediately someone will be able to pick it in that location. That's how it works. And then for more effect, we said, okay, of course you are doing your patriotic duty as a Lagosian to see something and say something, while at the same time you can point. How do we mean? If, say, for example, someone is driving against traffic, you get the video, you upload it to us, we verify it, that person will be fined, and when they pay a fine, you will get a redeemable token. So it is, of course, so that's what, at the same time, what are we doing? We are saying we are working last month also. But I must send a sign of caution to our people. While you are driving, you do not need to take videos of infractions. That also is, because as you are driving and taking video, somebody else will now take your own video. So the idea is that let us follow all traffic rules. This is something that the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has put as one of his major number one agenda, traffic and transportation and traffic management. So this will enhance what we are doing in Lagos State. The promise of Mr. Governor to the people of Lagos State is that they will have a seamless traffic movement in Lagos, and that's what we are trying to do.
That was, of course, the special advisor to the governor on transportation, Honorable Shola Giwa. I quite like the part where he said, you know, you could earn money from reporting, but of course you can't be driving and videoing to earn money, because you on your own, you're not committing traffic offense. You shouldn't even be videoing while driving. Why the heck are you even doing that? But the point is that if you report someone who is in causing infraction, you know, on the law, you earn points, and if it's verified and the person pays the fine that the person must pay, you get a fraction of it. I'll start reporting Yvonne very, very soon so I can earn more money. But you get the point. In the same vein, the Commissioner for Transportation, Oluwaseun Oshiemi, emphasized the Customer Support Center aims to improve communication between the public and Lastma, and of course streamline traffic operations. He noted that with the new centers, traffic management officers are now just a phone call away. Let's listen to the Commissioner as he tells us more.
It's a feedback program whereby we've created accessibility to our citizens. They have an opportunity, one, to report events, accidents, and issues that they feel that they want to report to the system. It also gives us the opportunity to be able to get further reach than what we have now. You know, like it was said, I mean, you see something, say something. We cannot cover everywhere. But with this kind of resourceful and wonderful idea, we'll be able to reach out to more places and we'll get more accessible. And, you know, beyond all of that, it also puts us on our toes in the area of service. Once you know that there's a mystery shopper or somebody watching you, it's just apparent that you'll behave better rather. And, you know, with this, our officials, would also know that there's a feedback process, and then they would also reorientate themselves service-wise. Not like they're not doing it before. But get them a better officials, and we'll be able to create better service to our people. So it's a feedback process. It's very helpful. It's also very, very resourceful. We have 10 men taking toll-free calls. Not just calls that you will not be charged for, firstly. And secondly, we have more than enough resources to attend to those things. Beyond that, you can even go online to our website to make complaints and do all of what you need to do. And a lot of work, back-end work, has been put into this to accommodate the frequency and the numbers that we expect. The benefit is enormous. One of the major ones is the ability to give us feedback and accessibility for public, so to say, and a faster reaction to issues that they have, and also a platform whereby they can make legitimate complaints when there are. So there's accessibility, there's a platform for complaints, and also the response time will be increased, and also help us in the way of service from our own people.
Lagos, you heard it there. The Lagos State Commissioner for Transportation, Oluwaseun Oshiemi, giving his thoughts there about, of course, Lastma's new innovation, 24-hour customer service center, which the government hopes will improve traffic management. You don't want to be wasting your time in traffic. I hate traffic, but it is what it is for a mega city like Lagos. Well, Lagos, that's the show today. Of course, remember we started the show talking about the local government financial autonomy as given by the Supreme Court. Barrister Ude Sam Sugbeda says, Ufuoma, good evening. The LG financial autonomy case is both political, altruistic, and decided using the golden rule of interpretation in law. All we need now is to amend the Constitution to reflect the judicial amendment of the Constitution by the Supreme Court, which is allowed. And thank you very much, guys, because now at least now I understand this part of the law. It's not something I had known before. On behalf of the team, thank you for joining us on the newsroom. I'll see you next week, Monday, same time, same Nigeria Info.
Information is key.
It is power.
Information rules. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.